Here are two magazine columns by Florence King from the National Review. The column was called The Misanthrope's Corner. These are two from September 1997. September 1st, 1997. This seems to be the season for chipping away at the diminishing rock of my childhood. First, Jimmy Stewart died, and then Woolworth's 5 and 10 announced that it was going out of business. To be honest, Stewart was the antithesis of my taste in men. The lovable boy-next-door type has always irritated me, and physically he turned me off because he was too tall and skinny. Solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and 5'10" is more my style, but I liked Stewart anyway, because he was there. Where childhood memories are concerned, there-ness is what counts. I probably wouldn't shop at Woolworth's today, but I want it to be there, and now it won't be, not ever again. Woolworth's needed no official greeters. The moment you walked in, you were enveloped in an overpowering aroma of hot sweetness issuing from the sugary batter in the donut fryer, the boiling caramel in the candied apple machine, the flavored syrups that were drizzled over crushed ice to make snowballs, and the mountains of candy corn, Butterfingers, and chunked-up chocolate in the cavernous food bins. The sweet smell was a year-round fixture. In summer, when the doors sat open, it wafted out into the street. In winter, the hissing steam heat trapped it inside, and mixed it with the cloying sense of the cosmetics counter, where they sold big blue bottles of Evening in Paris perfume, cans of dusting powder named Quelle Fleurs and Gier Kiss, which no one could pronounce, and tiny satin bags of gardenia sachet to scatter in bureau drawers, or for serious wafters to tuck into bras. The hardwood floors were black with age and squeaked, just like the floors of our apartment. The store served our regular needs: a 10-cent envelope of phonograph needles, Granny's advanced knitting books with instructions to rival the quantum theory, as well as some highly irregular ones. For example, the glittery earrings my father bought to decorate the head of the banjo he made, the oil my mother used to soften her baseball glove, and my penknife fixation. It was at Woolworth's that I got my first pet, a miniature turtle that I persuaded Granny to buy me before we went to the movies. They put him in a white pasteboard carton, like Chinese takeout, and I named him Murgatroyd, after a cartoon character. During the movie I kept whispering, "Hello, Murgatroyd," and sticking my finger in the box to pet him. I couldn't wait to get home and make him a rock garden, but Granny was absorbed in Backstreet, which met her definition of a good movie. She dies in the end. At long last, when the movie ended and the lights came on, I opened the box to check on Murgatroyd, but he was as dead as Margaret Sullivan. I burst into tears and ran up the aisle. "She's not old enough to understand about kept women," somebody whispered in disapproval, which made me cry harder. Granny offered to buy me another turtle, but I wanted only Murgatroyd. Nor would I let her ask for a refund, because that put him on a level with light bulbs or a can opener. I wanted to give him a funeral. So we went back to Woolworth's to buy a soap dish for a coffin and 2 tongue depressors to make a cross. The orgasmic transports that today's retailers call a shopping experience swept through Woolworth's on December 8, 1941, when a man began smashing everything stamped "Made in Japan." No security guards converged on him, and no one worried about lawsuits. As the crowd cheered, the manager winked and said, "I needed to get rid of this stuff today anyhow." It would have been futile to expect my mother to stay out of the fray. Grabbing an illustrated teapot, she was about to sidearm it, shortstop style, against the wall, But just then Granny showed up, waving a length of hat veiling that she had been inspecting when she heard the ruckus. "Oh, Louise! I turned my back for a minute, and you act like white trash. I'm going to break every piece of junk those sneaky, grinning runts ever made. Then go home and break your ashtrays where nobody can see you." She did, and bought new ones stamped Made in USA from Woolworths. Besides the infinite variety of stock, Woolworths offered the masses an ongoing morality tale in Barbara Hutton, the Woolworth heiress, who went through 6 husbands and $50 million. Her Babylonian hijinks were chronicled regularly in newsreels, and since the dime store was a block from the movie theater, the audience usually was eating something from her redolent candy bins as we watched her exchange vows with yet another playboy. "Money can't buy happiness," said Granny through her salt water taffy. "Oh, S dash exclamation point," Mama snorted. "It can if you do it right. She should have been made to work in a Woolworths for a few years to find out where her money comes from and learn the business from the ground up so she could run it herself. Then she wouldn't have time to get mixed up with all those lounge lizards." Leave it to Mama to define real feminism and responsible capitalism in one breath, an unassisted double play. Such easy lessons are impossible in a non-Woolworths economy. How can you have a Barbara Hutton if you have to do research in Forbes to find out who really owns a store? It also takes plutocrats of variegated swath to personify the titanic ruin that makes for a really effective "I told you so" morality play. Bill Gates could become another Jack the Ripper, but it's doubtful that anyone could think of anything memorable to say about it. Today I shop from catalogs whenever possible to avoid characterless suburban malls. "I found $1 million baby in Foot Locker" lacks something. Diamond bracelets Walmart doesn't sell scans, but despite their eternally falling prices, Walmart's comes up short in that raffish gypsy pushcart atmosphere I loved. September 1st, 1997. Of all the self-defeating things Americans do, our practice of renaming eternal verities to make them sound more user-friendly wins the booby prize. Like all societies, we acknowledge the need for certain people to set an example so that others will have someone to look up to, but we don't dare put it that way. Instead, we call them role models, a compound now so deeply embedded in our cliché lobes that no one stops to think that both words connote superficiality, ephemerality, and pretense. Earlier generations of Americans looked up to better-thans, as in better than we are, people who were a cut above them, such as teachers or business owners, and those who were several cuts above them, such as doctors, lawyers, and clergymen, once known as the learned professions. It's all over now. Better-thans preserved the stability of black neighborhoods in the Jim Crow era, but now the only blacks who call themselves role models are those who attend conferences on role model flight and the creation of the underclass. Among whites, the loss of esteem for the learned professions has been less dramatic in that it has not resulted in actual mayhem, but the psychological shocks mount daily. The doctor who cut off the wrong foot plays golf with the lawyer who advertises his services in commercials that open with the deafening crunch of a head-on collision and a close-up of a teddy bear on a rain-drenched road. Both say, "between you and I," and neither has any Latin, nor does the clergyman who confessed to molesting boys. The difference between noli me tangere and nolo contendere now escapes him. It could have been argued that these male better-thans have self-destructed under pressure from the flood of women into the learned professions. It certainly can be argued that women have damaged the better-than mystique by fritzing the not-rightness wire in our brains. This is the wire that makes children insist that their favorite bedtime story be told exactly the same way each time. Leave out the pig's hat, and the child will wail, "You didn't tell it right." The not rightness wire remains connected throughout our lives, governing our expectations and preconceived opinions, and giving off a hot sizzle when they are thwarted. Like most unfair reactions, this one is universal and immutable, and hence important. My not rightness wire sizzles when I see an Episcopal priestess in a reversed collar, when I see the politically correct commercial with the middle-aged construction worker who says, "My doctor told me to take dynamitol for my constipation. I trust her, wink, she's my daughter." And when I see a picture of the full Supreme Court containing 2 huge white spots, the jabots worn by the lady members to lend a feminine touch. Justice O'Connor's lacy number reminds me of the fanned-out handkerchief pinned to the shoulder of a friendly Midwestern waitress. But Justice Ginsburg's stark, foot-long Geneva bands are even worse. She looks like John Calvin gone wrong. Most better-thans are no longer better, and many are not even equal. 2 messages left on my answering machine are a case in point. Both were from local public school teachers, unknown to me. The first one sounded like a 911 call, a rush of words from a woman with a shrill, cawing voice just this side of hysteria. "I'm calling Florence King. I have a high school English class that needs your help fast. A workshop, a speech, something, anything." The other message was a wrong number. Thinking she had reached the mother of a student, the teacher launched into a long, rambling explanation about a schedule change. Again I was struck by the voice, flat, whiny, unconfident, muddy diction. Different in temper from the first frantic caller, yet they were alike in one way. They both sounded common. I felt oddly betrayed. The teacher as grande dame was a fixture of my school days. Unless you think I'm warming myself in the glow of nostalgia, cold mathematics bears me out. All of my elementary school teachers were born, roughly speaking, between 1885 and 1910, meaning that they came of age when college was still a preserve of the comfortable class. Teaching was the only career open to women then, and so a generation of ladies became teachers. They had a way of speaking and a general demeanor that their public school charges, who usually did not belong to the comfortable class, instinctively recognized, and so did our parents. The effortless discipline these women maintained and the automatic respect they commanded had less to do with school prayer and other touted traditional values than with frank class consciousness. The truth about role models that we go to such lengths to hide can be summed up as, sweet are the uses of elitism. A role model is someone who is superior in a worthwhile way, whose power of example transcends the fickle transports of hero worship. He cannot be too far above us. He must be someone we don't actually know, but do come in contact with, or at least see from time to time, as the old world villager saw the squire. Thus a valid model is an accessible better-than from the comfortable class. That used to mean the middle class when we had only 3 classes, but democracy works in mysterious ways its chaos to perform. Today's middle class is yesterday's blue-collar class, which was the New Deal's working class, who were Huey Long's little people, who were Bryan's simple people, who were Lincoln's common people, who were Hamilton's masses, who were Marie Antoinette's them. Thanks to government scholarships, college loans, educational tax credits, and affirmative action, millions of would-be better-thans are pouring into the fake middle class, convinced that everybody's got a right to be a role model, which is Hillary Clinton's "It Takes a Village." September 15th, 1997. Thank you for listening.